Eins, zwei, hört man mich?
Check, 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 check.
Eins, zwei, ja.
Man kann es vielleicht ein bisschen höher.
Check, check. Ja.
Und wenn du gerade rausgehst?
1, 2, 1, 2. Wunderbar. Sie sind glücklich oben mit uns.
So, I hope you have a little nice break, and now we will go on with our program. Before we start our next lecture, I have a question to all of you. So, how many of you already practiced some ultrasound? So, during a clinical rotation, during a course at the university, during a course of us, please hold up your hand so that we can see. Oh, all right, that's already pretty good. But if you haven't practiced it yet or that good, it's no problem. You will have plenty of time over this weekend. And at the beginning, it might not be so easy. So you will see lots of gray, black, or white spots. You will see some shadows. And it might not be so easy for you to identify as a real significant picture or even the organ you are scanning right at the moment. But our next two speakers will definitely change that and answer some basic anatomy and basic sonography questions you will definitely have at the beginning. Dr. Simon Orlob is one of the founders of Sono4you Graz, and he organized our first ever summer school back in 2013. He's a graduate of the Medical University of Graz, and right at the moment he works as a resident in anaesthesiology here at the LKH Graz. David Purkarthofer is one of our long-time Sono4you members and a certified student tutor by the ÖGUM. As a side job, he holds lectures at the FH Joanneum and devotes his leisure time to work as a paramedic. So please welcome David and Simon, and I wish you a lot of fun with their lecture.
Thanks a lot for the kind introduction and welcome to our lecture. We already heard a lot of very impressive, great stuff, great projects from the Netherlands. Now it's getting serious, I would say. Let's have a look if our slides are already up.
Actually, we have no slides yet.
Okay. Well, so to tell you what we'll do is we'll start with the really serious stuff. It will be physics in the beginning. We'll go on to artifacts, and then we'll talk about probe handling and cross-sectional imaging, probably the most challenging part of learning ultrasound, and probably the thing that you should really take home from this 2.5-day course. We'll quickly talk about knopology, so all those pretty shiny buttons on the ultrasound machine and which ones you actually need and which ones are just nice and shiny. And in the end, we'll give you a few ideas on how you could integrate ultrasound like in patient care, so the practical application of ultrasound in the hospital. And, well, now and then we've got slides. So, I would say that's fair enough. And so let's start with physics. Okay. We can do it without slides as well. It's not a problem because it's super easy. Because an ultrasound machine is made out of two things. It's crystals in the probe and it's a stopwatch. Okay, you can both imagine those things. You don't need the slides, even if they disappear. And what you're doing is you're applying a current to those crystals, and then they're starting to swing, and then they emit ultrasound waves. So a current applied to a crystal, and they emit ultrasound waves. And those waves, they travel into the human tissue if they're sent from a probe. And what the ultrasound machine does at that moment is that it waits for an echo to come back. So as soon as the wave is sent out, it switches to receiving mode, and it waits for an echo to come back from somewhere in the tissue. And we would have super nice graphics about that. But what you would see is a crystal sending out a wave and then switching to receiving mode. And that works if there's one thing that creates an echo, one object, and it's hit back. And as you can imagine, in the human body, ultrasound waves are always not just hitting one object. They're hitting a few objects in different depths. And our stopwatch, I said an ultrasound machine is nothing but crystals, and a stopwatch will just take the time. How much time does it take the wave to travel from the ultrasound probe, where the crystals are, to the object and back to the crystal? And from that time, it will generate depth information. And that's how it works. So, and now my co-speaker is gone as well. Now we've got a real problem, I would say.
David, hold on. I'm back to you just soon. We matched everything. Can you just check if our remote control works?
That one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'm
Yeah.
on the stage in just 1 minute.
Perfect. So now those are the graphics you've seen, right? So crystal, stopwatch, waves, and it switches to receiving mode. We had that. We'll just go on very quickly. Can you just advance the slides for our... Where's the computer? Over there. They switched it. Ah. Can someone advance the slides, please? Ah. Now that I know where to point it. So that's what I told you about earlier. The crystal emitting the sound wave hitting an object. Oh, please don't advance the slides anymore. I can do it. So we went further ahead one slide. So the crystal emitting a sound wave, and the sound wave hits an object, and the echo comes back. And what the ultrasound machine does, it measures the time for the first and the second object. How much time does it take the ultrasound wave to hit the object and get back to the ultrasound machine? So that's all that I wanted to tell you for now. Now you understand ultrasound machines.
Okay, I think it's working still. Come here. Yeah. Now you have to learn the basic theory.
No worries.
We're working on our movements here. You have to learn the basic principles of an ultrasound. An echo coming back, the stopwatch, all that is what you learn. Now think of the crystals we needed. There are crystals which have a property to emit very high sound. You see them up here. It's a high frequency, and the property they have is they can't penetrate that deep. But they can see by this high frequency very small structures. Better? And then you have other crystals which have much deeper frequencies. And they can emit very deep into the tissue. But you can't see that small objects anymore, just bigger structures. And you know this actually from cars at the traffic light, don't you? Where somebody is standing there in his BMW, and you can't hear the high sound, but the deep waves, they're going through, and you can hear them in your own car. And now let's think of, we have different crystals, we need crystals, and now let's build our own ultrasound probe. Think of the neck. I think the neck is not that much of a big structure, but very, very many small structures in there. All the vessels, the nerves, the different muscles, you know them from anatomy, and you want to visualize these structures. What kind of ultrasound probe do you need? You need many crystals. Just one crystal is just one line. You need several crystals aside of each other. And if you align them on a straight line, and you take crystals with high frequencies, actually you have your first ultrasound probe, which is called the linear probe. Many crystals on one line, high frequency. So you have an overview of small structures, not that much in deep space there. And
it's that kind of info. Just point it there. See?
And that's actually the neck you can visualize there. Let's think of another application of ultrasound, abdominal ultrasound. Okay. You take a crystal which has to penetrate more into depth, right? I mean, it's the abdomen. And then you maybe want to visualize also something which is the side of the ultrasound probe. Or before we had just the ultrasound probe, we wanted to know what's underneath the ultrasound probe. But in the abdomen, I want to see something which is more left and more right. Do you? Do you agree? Okay. And now let's check if we can build this ultrasound probe. So I would arrange these crystals with a deep frequency on a convex line. So we can see a little bit on the left, and it's going a little bit to the right. And that's actually the footprint you see here, the convex line of an abdominal ultrasound probe. And it's like a fan, where you can fan through the whole abdomen. Our abdominal ultrasound probe. And actually, I want to prove you here. That's the image you can visualize there. Also, sideways of the ultrasound probe. Now let's talk about a special application of ultrasound. And actually, we use the word echo for it. And this is funny slide movements. When you think of an echo, the heart is underneath your rib cage. And you have to visualize the heart just through this small space, the intercostal space, because you can't scan through ribs. And what you want to do is there to have a very small probe, penetrating quite deep, because the structure of the heart it's not that small a structure. So the mid-range ultrasound would be quite right. And we are doing a trick. We're taking just one crystal. In reality, it's more crystals. One crystal, and we are moving with this crystal the sidewise, so we can also visualize the whole heart just through this narrow space of an intercostal space there. And that's what we call the cardiac probe. And actually, that's the image you get.
Thank you. And I mean, I think even without any ultrasound knowledge, just with anatomy knowledge, you already know that's a heart. And you probably also know that if you just take one line, that you can see that the ultrasound waves are actually hitting different kinds of tissues and mediums. So probably first skin, subdermal tissue, muscle, then the pericardium, the left ventricle, somewhere down here. Oh, that's probably not working. I won't touch it. The left ventricle, at some point the left atrium, and we have to think a little bit about all those different tissues. And there's two things on either side of the spectrum. It's either air or solid structures like bone. Because through air, sound travels at a very low speed compared to other tissue. And through bone, it travels at a very, very high speed. And in between, there's all the kinds of organs and structures that we can visualize very nicely with ultrasound. So that's fat, water, human soft tissue, or for example, the human blood. And for all those things in the middle, like in the sweet spot, it's very easy for ultrasound to pass through. And if there's a reflection, it's not a 100% reflection. So at the border between fat and water, or water and soft tissue, some part of the ultrasound wave, some waves are reflected, but not all of it. If you hit either end of the spectrum, there's a total reflection. And that's something you have to keep in mind for using ultrasound, because you won't see anything behind air, an air-filled space, or you won't see anything behind solid structures like bone. And we'll have to talk a little bit more about those images and the reflections and how we can talk about those images, because it's actually rather important, not only for the hands-on sessions, but also for future application, that we've got some kind of shared terminology if we're all doing ultrasound. It's rather easy if there is almost no echo within a structure, like very, like fluids, for example, we would call it anaechogenic, and the ultrasound machine would display it as very dark or even black. There's hypoechogenic structures, like the orange area you would see here. I think it's part of the liver, and they are defined as reflecting less than average of the whole image. So they're depicted rather dark, but not black. Then there's hyperechogenic, as you've probably guessed, if there's some parts reflecting little sound wave energy. There's also parts reflecting a lot of it. And the last thing is actually, because you can change the appearance very much by the settings on your ultrasound machine. But what you can always do is compare one kind of tissue to another. So two tissues with the same echogenicity would be called isoechogenic. So let's go on to artifacts.
Brilliant. Artifacts.
So you did the physics part already, right? That's not bad.
You're still awake? Okay, fine. Artifacts. Artifacts, it's a word for something which we can see, but it's not there. But we might want to know why artifacts happen. And actually, sometimes artifacts also can tell you some information. So let's talk about artifacts. Let's talk about the reverberation artifact first. And the reverberation artifact, David already mentioned, if you are hitting, for example, an air-filled structure, like the lung, ultrasound can't travel through air that easy. So we get a reflection there. And if you're scanning the lung, your ultrasound will travel through the muscular tissue here, and it will reflect back. And some of the reflection from the reflection you get will be reflected again back by the probe. And you can see it here. But the ultrasound is just measuring time and runtime of the ultrasound beam. And so it thinks the second reflection, this reflection back, is just underneath the first structure. You can think of a basketball dribbling, you know? And the same is happening with the ultrasound there. And it's happening again and again. And that's the first image you get. You can see all these hyperechogenic lines there. And the first line is pleural line. And everything just beneath is an artifact just by the reverberation of the ultrasound. Now, if you scan through the liver up, you know, there's a diaphragm, and then again, the structure we have just spoken previously about, the lung. And again, the lung should be air-filled. And right now, our ultrasound probe, a beam is not coming directly on a tangential line here, or it's coming on a more tangential line and not straight to the pleura. And we get a reflection again. But this time, it's like a mirror where you're looking just into the mirror and you're seeing back there. And so you can see structures within the liver again. But again, think of the ultrasound machine. We have told you just before, it's just sending out a wave, then it's listening and measuring time and stopping when the echo comes back and putting a dot on your monitor. And you're getting the echo back. Again, it's just mirrored by the diaphragm there in orange. And for the ultrasound machine, the structure is just behind the diaphragm and not again within the liver. So that's why you can see liver within the thorax if you scan through the liver. And it's called mirror artifact. Now think of an ultrasound beam. It's traveling through the tissue, and all the time some echo is coming back. So it's losing energy in depth. At the first, very much energy, and later it's less. And the ultrasound machine compensates for it. It knows if I'm in a depth of 10 centimeter, I have to enhance the echo a little bit. So the liver is looking in 10 centimeter depth, the same as in 1 centimeter depth. And so also the echoes are less, obviously. And now let's think of a fluid-filled structure. A fluid-filled structure is unechogenic. There's not that much echo in there. And we, for example, can think of a gallbladder. And right now, the ultrasound beam is coming there, and it's traveling very good through the fluid-filled structure without any echo. And so, just when I'm through this fluid-filled structure, our echo beam has all the time the same energy as when he just entered the fluid-filled structure. And so, also, our echo will be much brighter there, much more hyperechogenic. And you can see here this fluid-filled structure. Our ultrasound beam is traveling through, almost no echo there, and then there is much more energy just behind the fluid-filled structure, and so it's more enhanced here. It's a little bit frustrating. And this is obviously called acoustic enhancement. Just by the way the ultrasound machine enhances the signal it's receiving. But you might see something else here. If you just put a stone into the gallbladder, you can see this bright, hyperechogenic, bright on the screen, hyperechogenic it's called, structure. This is our stone. And the stone reflects a lot of ultrasound, everything. So I can't see anything behind this structure because there is no energy left, obviously. And this is looking like a shadow, and this is the shadowing, also an artifact you can interpret because it tells us something about the structure we have seen just there. David, it's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, well, I think we're almost halfway through, so we'll get through with it at some point. We'll get to the next chapter, which is probe handling and cross-sectional imaging. And oh yeah, you probably all know that structure up there. It's called a pickle or an Essiggurkel. And actually on the left it's, I can't point, but on the right side there's just the pickle itself. You can easily recognize it. On the left it's the same. It's an ultrasound image, but I think it's pretty much the same. And what we want to tell you is that we're doing actually the same thing on both the left and the right side. With the ultrasound probe or with a knife, we're just cutting through, and we're seeing one slice at a time. And you can do it in a longitudinal view, just as you see here. Or you could do it in a cross-sectional view, and you would get a different cut, but also just one slice of it. And for most organs that we want to see, that's actually not really enough. And not all of the organ, it's just one slice of it. You wouldn't really know if the pickle is bad at one of its ends, right? So what we should do, both with the ultrasound probe and in real life, we should look at the whole thing. And that's actually, again, the same thing happening up on the left and on the lower right side. We're cutting through it from one side to another. And only then we can be sure that we've seen all of the organ. And it's the same for the longitudinal view, it's just much more, it's just much harder to cut a pickle in longitudinal view with a cutting machine, right? You can imagine that. I think Simon almost lost his finger, but well.
Thierry. You know him, or do you? It's Prince Harry, or no? He's kind of rude, isn't he? What is he showing us? Yeah, it's stinky finger. But actually look on this second perspective. What he's actually telling you is he just got his third child. So always take two perspectives. And that's what David just told you before. You can scan something longitudinal, but also cross-sectional. And it's on a 90-degree angle. And exactly the same is happening here with two different photographers from the yellow press. Completely different story. Remember this image. Whenever you see something in ultrasound, you need two views from different perspectives to say it's a true structure and it's something you should care about. So let's think of probe handling. David, I just brought a balloon here.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
For sure. Do you think we can slide it?
Do you want to chop it up?
Yeah.
Or slide it? What do you want me to do?
Yeah, chop it up.
Oh, okay. Well, good idea. I would need the...
Sure. We should change, yeah?
I would say so. Well, so what we're talking about right now, we talked about cross-sectional imaging, but we didn't really talk about how you could achieve it with your probe. And what we'll just quickly talk about right now is how you could move your probe to achieve these different kinds of views. And what you can do...
Actually, David, I just brought a probe here.
Ah, okay.
For sure, yep. It's a probe. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe you can help me out. I guess we need some smoke to make our beam, to visualize our beam, actually.
True. Well, I would say.
Sure. So you can see here, this is my ultrasound probe. It's kind of a large probe, but actually you can see the beam here, can you? And actually it's the same like the beam of an ultrasound machine. It's also waves, it's just light waves, so no sound waves, but it's almost the same. And actually I also can cut this balloon, yeah? You can see this? Yeah? And you see I can scan through it. I can scan it in a cross-sectional view as well. I can turn my probe to all the sides, and it should be all the same from all sides, just a ring.
We'll have smoke.
Or circle.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's working.
Yeah.
It's working. Okay.
It's one thing that's working, just taking its time.
Okay, I love this talk.
So, sorry, what did you say in the meantime?
I just introduced
probe, right?
our basic model of an ultrasound beam and our bladder.
Okay, so you didn't really continue with what we planned, right? Just,
No.
Okay, perfect. So we'll continue
just in the
right
meantime.
So the movements you could do with an ultrasound probe would be, actually, let's start in a different way. Let's say, why is it important? Because especially in the hands-on sessions following, you will have to communicate with the tutors and peer teachers at some point. I think you should turn it off again, like the
Should I?
smoke machine.
Should there be an alarm?
I don't know. So, but the smoke now.
What can possibly go
wrong? To
wrong?
communicate with your peer teachers in a precise way, you will need to know how those movements are called, and it's good that you're both using the same terminology. So there's rocking the probe. Could you probably show it?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I have my ultrasound image here. David, tell me, what should I do?
Well, so you would actually angulate the probe, but in the plane of the image, to the left and to the right.
Is this what you mean?
No, not exactly. I think you should stay at the same point.
Okay.
Ah, perfect. Now we can see either for you the left or the right side of the balloon being cut through by our light beam. It's not sound this time, but light. But I think that's rather easy to say. Stay at the same place, but angulate it in plane of the image. So for fanning, we'll do the same thing, but we'll go out of plane. So right now, Simon's going forward and backward through the balloon. We can slide the ultrasound probe, which would be just Simon moving a little bit to the left or to the right with his probe. Or out of plane would be just to the front and back, again, giving us different views of the balloon here. And there's one last thing, which would be rotating. And I think that's kind of self-explaining. Simon will just show it. So you would just rotate the probe along its own axis.
I mean, David, here, I think what we should tell everybody is we're moving this probe in so many axes.
True, true.
And so I just realized right now how important it is to move my probe just around one axis and not scanning like this.
True. Well, I would say just one movement at a time is probably a good idea, right?
Yeah, I think it's much more steady. I can follow actually the structures. And I mean, if I'm just doing everything in one time, it will be just a circle on this balloon, but I don't know which part of the balloon I'm scanning.
I absolutely agree. I would say it's probably a super beautiful thing about ultrasound imaging that you've got freedom in like all 3 degrees, but at the same time, it's horrible if you're just doing all the movements at once, right?
Yeah.
So probably one at a time, but use all of them?
Yeah, sure. And then I just realized how easy when I just move around one axis, I can see the whole volume sliced up like it did with the spickle up there.
True, true.
Brilliant. The part which is not working. Okay, knobology. Or knobology, yeah, sure. Different word, difficult word. Again, what are we talking about? This is the panel of an ultrasound machine. Confusing, isn't it? So many knobs there. I mean, how should you even handle a machine like this? I mean, this is an old machine. I mean, have you seen these new ones?
Oh, I would say even a few more knobs.
I mean, this is
But
crazy.
They're bright and shiny for this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and touch panel, perfect. But actually, I mean, it's looking like these old remote controls. Do you know them from your old TV? I mean, so many knobs. What do you need them for? I mean, I just want to turn my TV louder. I mean, I want to change the program, and I want to turn it off if I go to bed. Don't you? I mean, and maybe if you have kind of these recorders, just stop it when somebody rings at the door so you can see the movie afterwards again at the same point where you started. Yeah? I mean, this is what all I need. I mean, all these other knobs. But I mean, there is a company from California. I mean, they recognized what a remote control should look like. And I mean, this would be kind of my remote control for an ultrasound machine. I mean, what do I need? I mean, I want to stop the image when I get the structure I'm interested of to just have some time to analyze the image. I mean, this is freeze. Or, yeah, just freeze the image. I mean, loosen your hands when it was difficult to get the view, and then just, I mean, interpret the image and I mean, discuss it with your patient actually. Or, yeah, I mean, this is what ultrasound is about. And I mean, the other thing I want to do is maybe adjust a little bit the gain. I mean, if it's very bright, I want to have it more bright on my screen so I can differentiate which structure is hyper-echogenic. I mean, this is what I can see most of the time. But the less echogenic parts, it can be difficult. So I want to adjust gain. And obviously, I want to adjust depths. I mean, if I'm interested in a structure which is just superficial, I don't have to penetrate in too much depth. And I mean, I want to have it nice on my screen there. So this is the perfect remote control for an ultrasound machine. I mean, Actually, these are the knobs you need. And the message here is for you. Always look for the 3 knobs you need. When you take your ultrasound machine, it's a new machine, you don't know the machine, just look for these basic 3 knobs. Maybe also the button where you can turn on the ultrasound machine. I mean, it's embarrassing if you're standing next to the patient, you want to start and you don't find the knob to turn on the machine. But then I need the depths, I need the freeze button, and I have to adjust the gain all the time. Maybe we should also have a new remote control. So, David, let's talk about practical application of ultrasound.
Well,
I mean, I just entered the patient room with my ultrasound machine right now.
Well, it's maybe a little bit too early for that, I would say.
Okay.
Because there's a little thing you should think about before you do that. And it's actually, that's nothing that we invented, but it's from a colleague from Maribor, Gregor Brosen, who invented or who postulated those 5 Ps you should think about when you're actually thinking about doing an ultrasound on a patient. First, you should think about the purpose of the ultrasound and if there's any meaning for the patient in doing it and what you're actually looking for. Have a clear goal and objective. You should think about, okay, which probe am I going to use out of the 3 ones that we already talked about. You should think about the position. Where are you going to put the probe? Even before getting next to the patient, before even putting the probe on the patient. What's the point where I would most likely get the best image or the information that I want? You should think about the picture. So visualize in your head already, what are you expecting to see? Because if you've got an idea what you're expecting to see, it will be much easier to optimize the image, and it will be much easier to even get an idea if there's something different than what you would expect. So like a pathology in an otherwise healthy patient. And the last one is patient care integration. So after doing the ultrasound, think about how does this change the treatment course for this patient? And does it make a difference, and how should I adapt? And, well, there's not much more we would actually like to say. No. Oh, shit, I forgot the
Yeah, the most important part. David, but stay with me.
Thank you.
Stay with me.
Nice.
I mean, we will teach you this without any doubt. Next week, you will go to the ICU, you will take the machine there to the sono ward round, and you will start scanning. And almost certainly, you will find pathologic findings there, without any doubt. And you will handle the machine, and you will get a beautiful image there. And you will be proud. I can tell you, you will be proud to have your first patient scanned there. But be aware. You can become so quickly overconfident. And this is called the Mount Stupid. Don't go up there.
We will all go up there, right?
Yeah, but be aware of you're climbing up there and recognize when you're on the top. And certainly you will do mistakes. And it will be hard. This is called the Valley of Despair. The first image you're going through your physician and you're telling them, I just found this in this patient, and will be wrong. And you will learn again. Also, this is forming experience and knowledge and skills. You also learn with your false positive and false negative. And then you're becoming a true expert. And a true expert has knowledge and is confident, but not overconfident. This is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It happens all the time with everything, but just be aware of it. Ultrasound is so sexy. It's so cool to go out there. And there are so many people out there which can't do it yet because they were not trained to do it. It's not that difficult to get trained, but you will feel like, it's not that bad what I'm doing, but just be aware. The Mount Stupid is ahead of you. So, David, is there a last word to say?
Well, I would say it's just happy scanning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's happy scanning.
Try! Oh, fuck!
Thank you very much. Any questions so far? Okay.
Well,
So,
also,
so I might have a little question for both of you. So how long actually did you take to get over this mount of stupid and the valley of despair? And are you already a Superman, or what do you think?
What are you talking about?
sorry.
No, go on, go on.
I think it's dangerous to answer that. To answer that. I would say I'm probably somewhere in between those two. I'm far away from expertise, but probably Mount Stupid some days, Valley of Despair some days. I would say the Mount Stupid is probably the most dangerous thing for your patients. The Valley of Despair is probably the most dangerous thing for you. So, yeah, you have to get through both of it.
All right, are there any questions? Other questions from here? So, no. Then we would say thank you, both of you. It was again a very great lecture, and we have a little present for you too.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for the invitation. Compliment to to achieving this here and to organize all of this. We have been through this. It's a lot of work. So true respect for the professionalism you're doing with this organization.
Thank you.
We try to improve. We try to improve our technical stuff, but thank you very much for your lecture, and have fun with your present.
Thank you. So that was our basic sonography lecture. Now we will have a little break until 6:15 p.m. But make sure to get to the rooms you were told before at the registration, so that we can start in time for the hands-on sessions. That will actually last for 1 hour today. So until 7:15 p.m. we meet again here, and we will hear the third lecture about basics of anatomy.
And here again you can see the QR code for the evaluation of Simon and David. And yes, have a nice break and have fun in the hands-on session. I hope you can use all the stuff you've just learned right now. Have fun and see you later.